Right, morning guys. So this morning, as you can see, I'm starting a new house cut and we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere, which is like the perfect time to explain and set up our Unicontrol base station. So you don't need a lot of things to set this up. Obviously you just need your base post, which is we've had made with a 5/8 thread welded to the top of a post with 4 holes. And all you do is just make sure that your base post is, it doesn't have to be perfectly level both ways, but obviously the straighter it is, you know, the less correcting the base has to do, so it makes work a lot easier. So I've screwed that down with 4 Tech screws and a couple of washers because this post isn't quite perfectly level. So once you've fixed your base post to any, it can be a fence post, it can be, you can push a post in the ground. A lot of guys, if they're on sites for a long time, will weld these to tops of their site containers and they'll have these hardwired in, but because we move around so much, this works for us. We've had a few of these made and we just set these up. Like I might be here for a month, so we'll set these up, screw them down, and as long as they don't move, it doesn't matter. Like it can sit on a fence post, obviously not this fence post because you put your base down on that and it'll move around in the wind and all of a sudden the machine will start moving. So once it's set up, you thread the base all the way down and make sure when you thread them down, bottom the thread right out. So wind it down, don't wind it 2 turns and then leave it there, because what'll happen is if you don't wind it all the way down, obviously as you wind it down on the thread, your elevation will change. So I'll show you here in a second, but once you set the base to its height, you want to make sure that height doesn't change daily. So if your thread height isn't at the same place every day, you're going to end up with the machine elevation changing depending on how far up and down that thread you wind the base down to. So now that it's been fixed, the base is threaded, we can now hold our finger down, power it on. I've already got the Unicontrol Rover running here beside me, which is what you'll need to set it up. And the process of setting up the base, like these guys have made it so easy. You don't have to go, for where we're working now, we're not following a set RL for the pad height. So I've got probably a 60 by 60 house pad to do with a couple of big curved batters for a driveway that we'll go and talk through designing with the Rover once we've got our correction source set up. But we don't need to tie into a set point. Like obviously if you're in town and you're working to known points, you'd set your Rover up, get it to a rough height, measure, and then you'd go and pick your points up and calibrate to suit. But for here, I'm going to show you the easiest way to set this up, and it's literally just hitting a button that says measure. The machine will calculate where it is and it'll calculate its center point and its northeasting and elevation, and then that'll project that through to the machine. And in 10 minutes, you know, including setting this up, I can have the machine running sub 10 mil. Like, you know, where we're working today, I've got no cell phone coverage here. So it just works perfectly having a Rover and a base and having the machine control coming out to these areas. Like, you know, you'd have to usually have, you know, if we were doing this old school, you'd have me and the machine and you'd have a guy on a laser with a can of paint. But I can come out here, spend 10 minutes, you know, get out here to site slightly early, set the base up. And once it's set, it's 10 minutes. Once this is all set up in the Rover and you've told it where it is, all you have to do is make sure that this has got plenty of charge for the day, which it lasts 2 or 3 days off a charge anyway, which is magic. So all we do is spend the time to set it up first. And then each day, like I've set it up on top of the hill, so the house cut is in behind me here. But obviously a higher elevation gets you out of tree foliage, gets you in a, like obviously the clearer visual that the base has to the sky, the better your correction source is going to be. So if you try and set this up, like on the other side, there's some fences that are not as tall as this, but they're right across the base of a big row of pine trees. So you're going to struggle to see that whole satellite coverage. And see that it's giving us a projection for the last job that I did with all my poly lines, house mark outs, set out driveway, stuff like that. But this is a new job where we've come to, so the base thinks it's still set up where it was last time. So what we're going to do is tell it a new location. So it's so simple to do. You come into here to settings, you go antenna profile, base, hit done. So it's going to tell me that the Bluetooth has been disconnected. The base will then beep and say Bluetooth connected. So I hit done. And now you can see on the screen we're set up as a base station. So I'll come in here to my settings, hold finger down, you got correction source radio. So you'll come in, you can see my radio frequency, and depending on where you're working, you need to be quite specific on what frequency you use, because if you're working amongst other contractors that have similar frequencies, you don't want anything to be similar so you're not jumping into their base or vice versa. So for now, where we are, it doesn't matter all too much, so I'm going to leave it the same. So you come up here into base station settings, you can see radio power is on low, protocol is RTCM 3.2, so you can see you can go to CMR, CMR Plus, RTCM 3. So RTCM 3.2 is going to give us full coverage of all the satellites. So it'll give us as many observations as the base will see and give the projection to the machine with the tightest tolerance possible. So we'll come down here, you can see height to antenna is 0. So because on the rover, we're running a pole height of 2 meters and 40 millimeters, but here we don't want the pole height to be anything because this is 0. We're going to set this at 0. So you've got height to antenna is 0, and you can see the easting, northing and elevation, all of these numbers are going to change here when I hit measure, because we've set the base up somewhere completely different, probably I would say 7 or 8 k's away from where we were. So you can see the elevations changed, nor and easting has changed as well. So you hit done, the base is going to say base stopped because it's figuring out where it is. And after a couple of seconds, it'll figure itself out, it'll calibrate, and you can see here we've got GPS status, base active. So all our settings are the same. Our radio protocol we're going to leave. FEC will leave enabled, channel spacing, that all stays the same. So these are the best settings that you want to use for Unicontrol. If you've got Topcon or Leica machines, because this base can talk to all of them, you just have to change your radio protocol so the base will talk to those machines. But because we're just running Unicontrol to Unicontrol, we'll keep all of this the same, and it'll give us as many satellites as we can see. So you'll see here when I hit done, so obviously we're in a project here, we'll create a new project, we'll call this house cut. So you can see the project type is on the cloud. So if I need to, like if there's any trough water lines that I need to topo that I find in here that we're not sure where they come from or where they go, I can topo them, I can see them on my phone. I can then, when I've left here, I can take my phone and be like, hey mate, Aaron, here's some water lines that I found. I can mark them out on my phone. No need to come through and fire all this up again. So we'll hit create. The coordinate system, again, it doesn't matter because we're not trying to tie into anything specifically. So obviously if you were tying into a known point, there'd obviously be a set coordinate system, a set geoid on the plans that you're trying to tie into. So obviously you change the coordinate system in here. You can change it to wherever you need to be, wherever you may be in the country. Same with the geoid, you can select whatever you need to be, but for what we're doing here, it doesn't matter because this is going to be enough to create a flat plane and batters and stuff and still give us a real tight tolerance. So hit create, done. So now it's going to create a new project, and we're still set up as base station. So we're still signed into the base station at the moment. So what I'm going to do is sign back into the rover. Now that the base station is set up and that knows where it is, I'm going to get this to talk to the base and connect. So you come in here to settings, antenna profile, rover, done. Applying settings, and you can see the pole height is now 2 meters 04, and that's right because we're set up at 2 meters and 40 from where it's set up. So this needs to be told what height it's at, but a lot of the time you'll set it up at 2 meters because you don't want your rover to be down here at head height when you're going to get clipping and stuff like that. So you hit done, and you can see here on the screen you've got our plus, which is the rover on the screen. So at the moment our height to design will be minus 522.99 because we haven't created anything yet. But you can see here in the center we've got 32 out of 45 satellites, a correction age of a second, vertical accuracy of 6 mil, and horizontal accuracy of 4 mil. And you can see where we are. The machine is going to run a vertical sub 10 mil tolerance for this site, and we're in the middle of nowhere, all for setting up the base and the rover and the machine for a total of 10 minutes worth of work. And then I can work here self-sufficiently by myself. The client's saving money. He's not having to pay a labourer to be here as well on a laser. I would argue that being in a machine with GPS that's as fast as this Unicontrol system, you're not having to stop while your man is marking out on the ground with spray paint. You can just dig, trim, bulk all in one go, down to height, down to level, trim, happy days. It's as easy as that. And it seriously is the best system on the market for this, because I've just shown, being in the middle of nowhere, setting up as rural as it gets, you can still have this technology in the middle of nowhere where you have very minimal cell phone coverage, and it's fantastic.